Welcome to today's Explainer. So, we are tackling a topic today that honestly touches almost every single one of us. I mean, just look around you. Talk to your friends, your family, your coworkers. There's this deep shared anxiety out there, right? A feeling that the ground is literally shifting beneath our feet when it comes to just finding a place to live. Today, we're going to look at the global blueprint of housing affordability. We're going to decode exactly what is happening in the housing market, why it's happening, and what it all means for you. Okay, let's dive right into this. For generations, the formula was kind of a given. You work hard, you put away some savings, you do everything right, and eventually, you buy a home. It was just the natural progression of things. But we're waking up to a much different reality right now. Despite doing everything right, buying a home feels more impossible than ever before. House prices have absolutely skyrocketed across the world, and rent, it just keeps climbing year after year. And that leads us to the fundamental question of this entire explainer. Why is housing so incredibly expensive right now? You know, it's super easy to point fingers and say it's just pure greed or terrible luck. But the truth is it's not. It's actually a highly complex combination of economics, population growth, government policies, and basic market forces. So here is our roadmap for today to figure this out. First, we'll look at the core engine driving the issue. Then, the supply squeeze, followed by the demand surge. After that, the rent trap, and finally, the fix. Let's systemically unspool this massive web so you have a crystal clear understanding of the mechanics at play. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the core engine driving the entire housing market, supply and demand. This brings us right back to Economics 101. Housing, despite being an absolute necessity for human survival, plays by the exact same basic rule as pretty much everything else we buy: supply and demand. When demand goes up and supply stays low, prices inevitably rise. It's really that simple at its core. More people want homes than there are homes actually available to buy or rent. That fundamental imbalance, that's ground zero for the global housing crisis. Which brings us right to our second section, the supply squeeze. If prices are high because supply is low, we need to understand exactly why supply is failing to keep up. Let's look at the first bottleneck. This illustrates a hard physical truth. Land is a finite resource. I mean, sure, you can build taller apartment buildings, you can build deeper underground, but you absolutely cannot create more land. And in highly desirable, popular locations, that limited land becomes incredibly, astronomically valuable. And here's the absolutely crucial point to take away from this. The soaring cost of that land doesn't just magically disappear. It gets baked right into the final price of every single house or apartment built on top of it. And land is really just the start. When we look at developer costs, it's not just one thing going up. It's a massive pileup. Developers are paying more for labor, more for materials, more for permits. Transportation costs are up. Energy costs are up. It is all compounding. When the cost of actually building the physical structure rises across all these different vectors, the final home price has to rise too. These compounding expenses mean that even modest, everyday affordable housing becomes incredibly difficult to construct at a profit. And then we add the regulatory layer on top of the whole shebang. Strict zoning laws in many cities actively limit construction density. You have neighborhoods that only allow single-family homes, meaning building an apartment complex to house more people is legally restricted. On top of that, governments require lengthy permits, inspections, and environmental reviews. Now, impartially speaking, while a lot of these regulations are designed to protect safety and ensure quality, the undeniable economic reality is that they slow down construction. Projects take much longer, costs increase, and, just like the cost of land, those regulatory costs eventually get passed directly onto the buyer. Supply simply cannot expand quickly enough. Okay, so now that we understand why there aren't enough homes being built, we need to flip the coin. Let's look at Section 3, the demand surge. Why is the desire for homes unnaturally high right now? Think about cities like New York, Los Angeles, London, Sydney, Toronto. They act as massive population magnets every single year. They're attracting millions of people migrating in search of better jobs, better schools, and better opportunities. But remember our supply problem? New houses are simply not being built fast enough to accommodate this massive influx of residents. You have this ever-growing pool of buyers competing aggressively for the exact same limited number of homes. But population growth is only part of the demand story. We also have to look at monetary policy. Following financial crises and economic slowdowns over the last couple of decades, central banks around the world significantly lowered interest rates. This made borrowing money much, much cheaper. suddenly everyday people could qualify for much larger mortgages than they historically could. This effectively flooded the housing market with cheap money. Demand increased incredibly rapidly because suddenly everyone had more purchasing power. And as more buyers competed with these larger loan approvals, prices naturally climbed even higher. And here is where the landscape fundamentally shifted. The housing market is no longer just ordinary families looking for a place to live. We're seeing a massive surge from real estate investors and giant investment firms. Homes are increasingly being purchased as financial assets. Some investors buy them to rent them out for passive income, while others just hold onto them, waiting for the price to increase so they can sell it at a profit. This large-scale institutional entry into the market massively increases competition and dramatically reduces the number of homes available in the inventory for ordinary buyers. So we have incredibly restricted supply crashing headfirst into massively stimulated demand. What does that actually look like for the average person? That brings us to Section 4, the vicious cycle, or as it's often called, the rent trap. Let's follow the real-world consequences of this step by step. Step 1. All those factors we just covered push home prices higher. Step 2, because buying is so expensive, more people are forced to continue renting. Step 3, this creates a massive surge in rental demand, which inevitably pushes rents higher. And finally, Step 4, because people are paying so much in rent, they struggle to save up for a down payment, making it even harder to buy a home. It's a perfectly closed loop. One problem feeds directly into the next, trapping millions of people in a perpetual cycle of renting. And the fallout from this cycle? It affects absolutely everyone. Young adults are forced to delay buying homes, pushing back major life milestones. Families are spending a dramatically higher percentage of their total income just to keep a roof over their heads, making housing their biggest monthly expense by far. Workers are forced to move further and further away from their jobs just to find affordability, resulting in these grueling commutes. And ultimately, this rapidly accelerates growing economic inequality between those who already own property and those who are locked out of the market entirely. Now, I know that sounds bleak, but this isn't some permanent law of nature. It's a structural blueprint. And blueprints can be redrawn. Let's move to our final section, the fix, and how we actually rebuild affordability. While there's no magic silver bullet here, experts point to a clear mosaic of solutions. We have to fundamentally build more homes. We need to increase housing density in areas where people actually want to live. We have to reduce the unnecessary regulations that are slowing down construction and driving up costs. We need to massively improve transportation infrastructure to connect more affordable, outlying areas directly to urban job centers. And we need to actively encourage new housing development. But if you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this. Increasing the sheer supply of housing is widely considered the single most important step to fixing this crisis. It really all comes down to one concise thought. Housing is expensive because millions of people want homes, while supply struggles to keep up. Population growth, the reality of limited land, soaring construction costs, the rise of investors, restrictive government policies. All of these distinct forces combine to push prices higher, and until we find a way for supply to actually catch up with that soaring demand, housing will likely remain one of the biggest financial challenges facing people all around the world. Understanding the mechanics behind the curtain is really the first step to navigating this market. But it begs the question, where does this leave future generations? So, what topic should we dive into and explain next? Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.